Good evening, Brother Andrew. Evening, family. It's lovely to be back. Another week. It's amazing how quickly it all goes, actually.
How are you feeling, sis?
I'm feeling very, very good, Brother Andrew. And I just want to say that I really love what you've done this evening, allowing us to remember and to say thank you to our Black heroes, and also to remind us that their courage and their strength lies within us, because we come from the same place that they've come from. So the courage and the wisdom and the skill and talent they have and their pain lies within us as a next generation to drive it forward. So thank you very much for giving us that moment to remember.
Thank you, sister. Lady Adele, I don't want to hold you back any further, my queen. It's your time to really educate us. I'm going to stop the share 1 second. I'm going to make sure that you can share yourself. But Lady Adele, we can't wait for you and Reverend Shock today, beloved. You know, I don't know what angle you're going to come from this week, but you can share now, sister.
Nice.
And you know, please educate us today. Educate us.
Well, Brother Andrew, we're going to finish off some work on the Hegelian dialectic that we were looking at for the last couple of weeks, just to actually take it to its conclusion for us to leave and make up our own minds on it. So family, so we started looking at this topic, the Hegelian dialectic, but I've used the term for this week, controlled opposition, because that's another term for it. And what we learned last week is that the Hegelian dialectic is a philosophical theory that states that two opposing ideas can be seen as true at the same time. And today we translate that as the ability to resolve these two opposing perspectives at, and quote, a higher level of truth. But that higher level of truth is defined to meet the agenda of a group of people, not necessarily ourselves. It's a philosophy that creates problem, that leads to reaction, to produce a solution. Also, that term is thesis, antithesis to synthesis. It's two ways of saying the same thing. And it is now the most effective way to create a crisis that causes us as a people to cry out to our leaders for help.
One of the plays that we see being used throughout history by the controllers to manipulate the masses is their interpretation of the Hegelian dialectic. Now, this is loosely translated as problem, reaction, solution, order out of chaos, but this is an 18th century theory that basically says the human mind cannot understand anything unless it is split into opposites, and then the discussion that's in the middle would be the synthesis or the solution. But the problem that we're seeing today is that this theory is being exploited to manipulate the population. It's kind of the left-right divide and conquer, left versus right, black versus white, keeping all of us fighting amongst ourselves. So while we're divided, they are conquering us by providing us with their solution, their answer to our problems. And basically what we're going to see is that conflict can only be resolved by some global authority, some outside authority, rather than our own sovereignty, our innate sovereignty.
So global society today, that's all of us today, we all now live within this Hegelian dialectic model. It's the most powerful philosophy of our time, and I would probably say of all time, of this modern Western time. But we need to, as a people, we need to be able to see, hear, recognize and understand how it is manipulating us into believing that we are affecting change for the betterment of our lives. Ooh, what's going on? So this man here, Mob Deep, and I want to say thank you very much to the brother who in the chat last week sent a message, and others would have seen it. Mob Deep, he released his last album called The Hegelian Dialectic, and he released it in 2017, actually 4 years ago tomorrow. And it's an album that you can't buy anymore. You can't even download it anymore. And when I looked it up on Amazon, they're asking up to £500 for a copy of this album. And I say to myself, why is it that this man's last album cannot be got, yet his earlier ones can. You see, Mobb Deep had an understanding of what was going on around him. And he actually said in the interview that we just saw a clip of, that it's time for us to graduate to the next school of thinking. And I was quite impressed by the way he said to the next school of thinking, not the next level of thinking. Now, this leads us on to another thing. It's important, I would say, that we don't dismiss conspiracy theories outright, because they are a result of one of two things. One, a conspiracy theory can come about because someone's been reflecting or researching a situation or circumstance and come to a realization or an understanding that something is not quite right or something is missing. Another reason for conspiracy theory is that it is designed to distract or mislead us. But whichever of those two reasons it is, the theory, the conspiracy theory, does come from a place of actuality that we may not always be able to get to the root of. So the closest that we have actually to the Hegelian dialect is this man here, Carl Hempel's law, which is just simplified as cause to effect, particularly in relation to science. But cause to effect is really about specific situations that are not necessarily related to each other. So watering the flower, you get a plant, is not related to another cause effect, such as get a toothache, you go to the dentist. So cause to effects tend to be isolated situations. However, Hegel, if he was to describe his philosophy as a law, we could call it the journey to freedom. But he said, history is a logical development of the previous stage of history, which is always moving towards freedom or moving towards utopia. And he saw history as having moved over time from a state of lawlessness to strict hierarchy and to democracy across the ages. And we're now in the stage of democracy. So to explain this just a little bit, I'm going to just use an example of a farmer. So in the age of lawlessness or the problem, a farmer, for example, he would plant whatever crops he wanted to plant, but then others would come along and steal his crops. And so what the farmer would say is, you know what, next year I'm not going to go through all this hard work to plant crops to have it stolen. I'm just going to go out and steal it as well. And so we have this lawlessness. But as a result of incidences like this, we then get into a state of strict hierarchy, our reaction to this problem. So now what the farmer does, he plants what he likes and he pays a protection tax. He pays a tax to the landowner for a protection. So what happens now? Anybody caught thieving, they're either killed or they're imprisoned without a trial. Planting increases, thieving decreases. And then as time goes on, we reach where we are today, which is the age of democracy, which is the solution. The farmer plants his crops, he pays a tax, he pays insurance, and law protects the farmer and the thieves. So democracy, the solution to this, democracy has combined some of the strengths from the state of lawlessness and the state of strict hierarchy. This becomes the solution. Now, slavery is also built on this structure because the elite made it work for them through the master-slave connection. And Hegel talks about that. If you remember last week, I mentioned how he was watching how the slaves worked in the Caribbean, and he used that and saw this master-slave relationship. And he sees the democracy where the savage is now liberated from his savagery. So that's where the democracy came in for the slave. And this happened because the master was able to do that. So slavery was built on this Hegelian dialectic approach. So what happens is we have a problem is created, then there's a reaction to the problem. And as a result of resolving the problem and the reaction, we get a solution. But what happens, that solution now becomes the new problem because it's not quite good enough, and so that problem requires a new reaction, and as a part of that reaction, looking at the two of them, we get a new solution, and that solution, which creates a new problem or thesis, requires an antithesis, And then we get this synthesis, this solution. And Hegel says life and history is like this. This circle will keep going round and round indefinitely, getting closer to freedom, but never actually reaching it. However, today, the Hegelian dialectic, or controlled opposition, which is its new definition, is used to fulfill the agenda for those in power, those that we call the elite. And to achieve this, to achieve the solution that is desired, relies and thrives on instability, which is promoted through our fear. So fear of losing our home, fear of losing our job, fear of losing our finances, or being harmed from others, or creating differences so that we're in argument with each other. And these fears make it easy for us to be conditioned.
And the best way to create instability, because instability is what is needed here. That's what they want. They want instability because when people are unstable, so they fear they're going to lose their homes, they fear they've got nowhere to live, they fear they've not got enough money coming in, we fear that that strangers are going to hurt us, we fear people who look different to us. So we're very easy to condition when we don't live from the soul, when we don't live from the truth of ourselves. The basket of our mind and our emotions become very, very easy to condition. All I have to do is cause you a small bit of pain, and then that part of you will stay reactive, you know? And if you fed things all of your life, not taught your own history, and the basic problem with this is the colonial history of these islands.
So there you can see this philosopher here is explaining that situation. And what was interesting is when he used terms like the truth of self. If you don't know the truth of self, or you don't know your soul, you will get caught up in this manipulation and technique. And he talks about the pain. And we know today, young people don't expect to have any pain. They don't understand the importance of suffering in character building and in driving change. And this is something we need to work with our young people to appreciate and understand the value of pain, and not to run away from it, or getting to states of being unable to manage themselves. But there are other forms of manipulation in order to allow us to be easily conditioned. And things such as confusion, not being clear on what's going on, when information is not passed to us clearly. Worldview poisoning, what does that mean? It's about conditioning the way we as people view ourselves as humanity, and view our nature, and how we value our own selves. So manipulation to change how we see that. Divide and conquer, using the differences between us to create infighting. Control of the mass media, we see it all the time. Control of food and medicines, what we eat, what medicines we take, and our access and the availability of them. And the DHR factor, which controls us, and that means denial, hassle, and ridicule. And being afraid of denial, or suffering hassle, or being ridiculed puts us or traps us in a state of inactivity. To avoid these things, we become inactive. And then symbolism that reinforce ideologies in our subconscious, some of the symbols that we see in our large corporations. And you will remember that I went through this quote last week, a definition, the modern definition of what lies behind the modern Hegelian dialectic. It is where the ruling elite create a problem, anticipating in advance the reaction of us in the population to that crisis that has been created, and thus conditioning us to want a change. And so when we are properly conditioned, the desired agenda of that elite is then presented as the solution. So when we're conditioned enough and we've cried for the change, we need it so much, the solution may not necessarily be the solution that best suits us, but we're so desperate for a solution, so reactionary, that we accept the solution that's given. And the solution they present is not actually intended to solve the problem, but to serve or to wait in the wings as the basis for a new problem, or to exacerbate the existing one. And when the newly created problem reaches a boiling point, it becomes a foundation for us to cry out for change yet again. And it is this process which is repeated over and over all the time, moving us towards whatever endpoints those in control, those in power have in mind. And so today, controlled opposition is not following the natural laws of social or historical evolution as intended by Hegel. It is now engineered within a clearly defined agenda. So how does this look in practice today? Well, for instance, here an agenda. What is this agenda here? The agenda here is that those in power want to centralize that power for themselves. So the problem that is created is the engineering of fear of terrorist threat, whether that's real or perceived. So terrorist threats are a problem that is created to get a certain reaction from us. And that reaction is we need more police on the ground in order to protect us and to protect our society. So for the agenda, the solution is the removal of some of our freedoms and the transfer of power from the many to the few. And we don't realize that this is what's going on. So the desired solution cannot be introduced unless those being manipulated, and that's us, takes the side that advances the predetermined agenda. And we need to be conscious of this at all times. We may not be in a position where we can make a change or make things different, but we need to be aware of it because it impacts on our behaviors and our attitudes. So what about private control? Another agenda is private control. Big corporations such as the pharmaceutical companies and the food companies, they want to have the global monopoly and domination of all goods and hold governments hostage to them. So they institute a problem of capitalism. So capitalism is where the entrepreneurs own the business and we as the consumers control the business because we do the spending. But if the prices go up or the food or the products get hard to get, we, the consumers, say we can't manage this, we can't get what we need. And so the reaction, that is created is socialism. So the government says, okay, we will own all the businesses, you can get it from us now, and we will control any business outside of our control. And so we as a people feel, yes, the government's got it in control, but what's happened is that the private corporations have this solution, or corporations, where the entrepreneurs can continue to own the business, the governments are allowed to control the business, but the corporations still control the government. And here you can see how large corporations entrap not just us, but they entrap the government who is supposed to represent us. Hegelian dialectic or opposition also affects global financial control. Here we know that the elites want to control all the global finances. And so the problem they create is the Federal Reserves or Federal Reserve banks. Money as computer numbers that are manipulated to raise real money, affecting stock markets, affecting inflation, making it difficult to buy our houses or to sell our houses, for example. So they create this problem so that there is a reaction, so that banks have to get hard currency. We can't let the banks fail. If people want their money, we've got to have that. We've got to have that access to it. So we now feel safe that our monies are safe in the banks. But the solution is, let's now get out digital currency. Let's get people buying with their real money, money that doesn't necessarily exist, and we hold on to real wealth. So global financial control is a very powerful tool that affects everybody from governments right down. And this is where I just want to look for a few moments at the global pandemic. Now, the global pandemic, whether we consider it to be deliberate or whether it's not, has provided a new agenda for managing global affairs to control us, the people, and to control governments, and to control the financial markets and nations and health and so on. So the problem that we have is this global virus. Intentional and released into the world, we don't know. It could be a natural virus that's come about, we don't know, but it is a problem. And our reaction as people is that people are sick and people are dying. And so our reaction is, government, you need to provide a cure for us. But the solution is many. And I'm just going to go through some of the solutions that have arisen or that are taking advantage of the global pandemic that we have, this controlled opposition. So I just want to have a look at some of those solutions. So the first set of people able to take advantage of the virus is global capitalism. They are taking control. And the problem is that they have now been able to create is a global financial crisis, because the government is now locking down their economies. And as a result of that, the reaction to that is that as people, we are unemployed, we become isolated because we can't move around, and we make demands on our governments. So the economy closes down, our reaction is to make demands, and the solution is the resetting of capitalism. We're not at the virus yet, it's at the vaccination yet, it's resetting of capitalism. And what is that? It's a country's trade and industry, and it being controlled by private owners for their own profit. So it provides an opportunity to reset capitalism. Another area where the global pandemic has provided solution is about restricted freedoms. So what is the problem created now is global hysteria. Now, sickness and death, fear-mongering has created global hysteria. And we see that in the news all the time. The way it's reported, the message that come out, it's set up a state of global hysteria. And what is our reaction to that? We want something, and we want something to happen now to protect us from the deadly disease.
Lady Adele, you're killing it today. Brothers and sisters, are you listening to Lady Adele today? Please carry on, sister.
Thank you, Brother Andrew. And so the solution for the solution here is that the government suspends our liberties to provide to us a sense of safety. So we can't travel, we can't get into education, we can't make contact with each other. A police state is coming, the army wants to go and support schools with the vaccination, employment suffers, and we can't even go and have places of worship. So the restricted freedoms, which is one of the solutions created by the pandemic, also produces a suspension on our liberties. Another area where the COVID pandemic has taken advantage is on the assault of our minds. The problem created here is this endless fear-mongering, messages by the mainstream and by the media, by fake news, the fear-mongering that we hear on the news, where it reports the number of deaths after 28 days of taking a COVID test. But because we're so in a state of hysteria and panic, we only hear the figure and the word COVID, and we think it's all one thing, but there's other things going on as well. So what is the reaction? What is our reaction to that? We are confused. And we're confused, and the media takes advantage of those responses. And so there is misinformation that is fed in. And so what is the solution to that? Censorship. So it's there's a squash, or there's an end put to any balanced debate. Propaganda is produced, messages are censored. So anybody that wants to contradict what the government is saying about the pandemic are targeted, and their social networks and medias are shut down. And Brother Andrew, you were speaking to us a few weeks ago after the COVID debates on the hidden truth itself. You were struggling to be able to operate as normal because everything seemed to be cutting down and blocking you out. So assault on our mind, and because that's the agenda of the moment, it through this problem and then reaction, it's allowed censorship, and we've accepted that because we feel that it's protecting us or helping us recover from the anxiety that we're going through. Another area or group that has benefited, one of the solutions to the whole COVID pandemic, is surveillance and tracking. That's the agenda, surveillance and tracking. So what is the problem that is created? It's the collapse of businesses. So many businesses that have collapsed because people cannot go to them, cannot visit them, cannot trade with them. So what is our reaction, or what is the reaction to that? It's the misleading reporting of infections and deaths that continue to frighten us as people, and we continue to push demands on the government for the protection of ourselves and our others so we can get back to a normal life. So what is the solution? The solution is track and trace. It's surveillance in the guise of providing safety in exchange for our freedom. Movements to long-term planning of digital tracking, biometrics, and we know this is something that's been wanted for young offenders, to have the biometric tracking of them and chips and how we travel. So surveillance and tracking have benefited from the current pandemic, but we've colluded with that because as businesses have collapsed and we've seen the infections and death rates go up, and we want something done about it, we say yes, we're happy with track and trace and biometrics. And the last one, and the most obvious one, is the vaccination. And what is the problem created? Is that our national infrastructures have shut down in so many different ways. We can't go to school, we can't go to church, hospital. If you have regular hospital appointments or dentist appointments, they've been held back or you can't get them. Millions, more and more people are isolated, and we're all fearful of the unknown. We're reminded of this on a daily basis. So the problem that is put in front of us is that the national infrastructure cannot manage anymore. So what is the reaction? It is our cry for a return to normalcy, to have our business open and to return to the way of life we had before. So that's how we rebut that. And so the solution that's been given to us is this unproven vaccination. We're told that for life to get back to normal, we must be vaccinated. We know it's an unproven vaccination, but it's a risk and a chance that we have to take. So the solution of the pandemic is ultimately to reach this new normal of how employment is going to work, this new normal of us accepting surveillance, the new normal of accepting stop and search, our new normal of restriction of freedom of speech, the new normal that mental anxiety and in health is going to increase and need a new set of medical treatment, and a new normal that our travel will be restricted. So the Hegelian dialectic, which is now bound by an agenda which is designed ahead of us, which already has put the problem into motion, anticipating or engineering how we are going to react, leads to a solution that we as a people think we have created or we have put in place, but really that decision had already been taken. So we must not take anything at face value. This quote here: nothing in the world stands by itself. Every object is a link to an endless chain and is thus connected with all the other links. Investigation of the forms of connection is the primary task of cognition. And so I wanted to look at the definition of cognition. Cognition is the mental action or process of acquiring knowledge and understanding through thought, experience, and our senses. And that includes common sense, insight, foresight, hindsight, and including our history. So I'm not suggesting that we are to be skeptics and cynics, but we are to be reflective. You see, like the elite who think generations in advance, they know the agenda, they know the problem, the reaction, and the solution before they even bring it to us, we need to do the same if we are to prepare our young people to be able to operate and understand how this works. We need to look forward as much as we look backwards. And there is an impact to every decision we take. So we need to be conscious of the decisions we are being engineered to take, even if we can't necessarily do anything about it. The use of Hegelian dialectic is a deficit model built on conflict and fear. It is used to lead others like us to be led as the Pied Piper leads for the benefit of the elite to achieve their higher level of truth. So I'm saying, brothers and sisters, it must become our purpose in 2021, the year of spiritual action, to consider and act on our higher level of truth and make sure we are acting, thinking, and working together individually, as families, as a community, and a global family, as we do on a platform such as this. So, Brother Andrew, that's my look into the Hegelian dialectic. It has been a wonderful experience. It has changed how I see things, how I view things, how I accept news. And, yes. So that's, oh, I was off, the camera was off.
Lady Adele, brothers and sisters, you gotta understand, I had no idea where she was going today. It's not like I know what she's gonna do. She does not consult me at all. She does it. And brothers and sisters, Adele, master teaching, man. That is the time. That is the time, brothers and sisters. And you know the show's only gonna get hotter. Reverend Shock is now waiting to come on. But Lady Adele, oh my God, you killed the game. You bodied the bag. Jeez. And I will say, Lady Adele, stay on screen for 1 second, sister. Dear. Stay on screen for 1 second, because brothers and sisters, before Reverend Shock, who's the keynote speaker today, comes on, before Reverend Shock comes on, brothers and sisters, you got to understand this. You got to understand this, brothers and sisters. You've got to stay woke, man. You got to fight. Look, brothers and sisters, you lot don't know where we're going to take this. Someone just put on the chat group, Sister Adele, they're splitting up families with opposing views. You've got a situation, people don't know whether to take the jab because then I can get a job or go to work or fly on holiday. I mean, people are going through trauma right now, okay? So
that's the plan. It's the plan.
We are going to be going, the brothers, you don't know this, I'm only announcing it tonight. Myself and Lady Adele, we're going to be doing a hidden truth breakdown on this movie. I know 99% of you have never even seen this movie. Lady Adele, look, what's your views on this movie? Don't do no breakdown yet. Just tell the brothers about this movie.
So, brothers and sisters, what I would say, it was an incredible movie. When I watched it the first time, I didn't quite get it, but it was spinning around in my head. So I don't know if anybody has seen Bamboozled, but that's a film that's very close to this one, done a very long time ago. But Sorry to Bother You is, for me, it's going to be one of my top 10 movies for sending a message to us about how we operate in systems. It's the Hegelian dialectic right there.
Did you hear that?
Our role within it.
Did you say that one more time? Because maybe the people at the back didn't hear you just now, sister.
I'm saying, Brother Andrew, that Sorry to Bother You, this film is the Hegelian dialectic in action for us as a Black people.
Jeez! Brothers and sisters, this film, how many times should they watch it, Adele, before we do our breakdown?
Well, I would say at least 2, because if anybody's like me, you watch the film for the first time, more in the entertainment factor, the colors, the actors, and that sort of thing, and you lose some of the message. But the second time round, when you've got that side of your right brain out of it, and your left brain starts to listen and see the messages that are there, and those small details and you start looking at every sign, the road sign, what people are wearing, and just little things, just the posters on the wall, it changes the movie completely.
All right, brothers and sisters, this is where they're taking us. Those of you who've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. If you're confused what's happening today, brothers and sisters, look at that image, because that is what they are turning the masses into. And you notice I didn't use no color line. 85% of white people will be turned into this. 85% of people of color. The aim is to turn us into this. I'm not even going to break it down tonight. Wait till we announce the breakdown, brothers and sisters. And it's got to get even more hotter. It's got to get sticky. Because the next breakdown we're going to do, we're going to announce it soon. Who is this, brothers and sisters? We are going to be doing a hidden truth on this movie. Oh my gosh. Oh, does anyone know what movie this is? Oh, someone just said it. Come on, man. Brother Leo Muhammad done a masterclass on this back in the day. We're going to be going, if you want to understand what's going on today, you've got to get into Animal Farm. We are living right now through George Orwell. He predicted all of this, brothers and sisters. So very soon, we're going to be doing a hidden truth breakdown on Sorry to Bother You and Animal Farm. If you missed that, then don't talk to me. Just don't talk to me, because you're not serious. You are not serious about what's happening right now. Oh my God, we've got Reverend Shock coming up next, brothers and sisters. Reverend Shock coming on next, and I can't wait. So brothers and sisters, just 2 minutes before Reverend Shock comes in, because this coming Friday, brothers and sisters, we're going metaphysical. We are going Sister China, my beautiful daughter. Make sure you put the link up for this one. Brothers and sisters, this is where we're going this Friday. This is where we're going this Friday.
Stephen Strange. Might I offer you some advice? Forget everything that you think you know.
You're a man looking at the world through a keyhole. You've spent your life trying to widen it. Your work saved the lives of thousands. What if I told you that reality is one of many?
I don't believe in fairy tales about chakras or energy or the power of belief.
You wonder what I see in your future? Possibility.
Why are you doing this?
There are other ways to save lives. So much you don't know.
Teach me.
Oh, brothers and sisters, that is this Reverend Shock. Where are you, my king? All the way from Los Angeles. You don't know my big brother.
What's going on, brother?
Brother Reverend, I don't know what to say. We've got nearly 500 people waiting to hear you, the master team. I want to say before...
I don't need to come on after Lady Adele. She rocked that. Let me tell you something, man. Every single thing she brought was fire and truth. And it's so crazy because she hasn't seen my presentation. My presentation complements exactly what she's done. So it's absolutely insane. That's frequency specificity right there, dude. Seriously.
Brothers and sisters, the king, the master teacher is about to present to us now. As I said before, this platform is hidden truth. Understand that. And it's a platform for unity of all schools of thought. But I'm going to say this. This, brother, you're about to listen to is one of the regular ones that we're tuning into. I choose people. As you know, there's only 1 or 2 people that can come on my platform on a regular basis. This is Hit. He's one of my master teachers. Reverend, I'm going to shut up now, brother. And no, brother, I'm going to shut up now. The master teacher's in the house. Brothers and sisters, Get your notebook and pens ready. The master teacher's about to address us. All yours, King.
I appreciate it. So I got a PowerPoint presentation I'm going to do
It's all
today. So
yours.
let me
It's
share
all
my
yours,
screen if I
brother.
may. And let's see if I can get this PowerPoint shared. And then we can get in it and get at it here. Hold on, let me make
It's all
it
yours, King. Take your time.
see. And you should be a blank screen there, but let's see now. Is it opening up? There we go.
See it clearly, King.
There we go. Fantastic. All right. So, I'm so honored to be back with the family over the pond, as they say. Now, Brother Andrew, he keeps using my baby picture on all of the promotionals and everything. This is when I was like, 3 or 4 years old. I don't know why he keeps using that photo.
I love it,
But
King.
that's all right. Because, I was a fine ass baby. That's all I'm saying. That's a good looking child right there. Now what happened to Rev Shock is racial battle fatigue over the years. So the Rev Shock you see today in the photo, you're like, maybe that's my son or somebody. I don't know who that is. But after all the gamma radiation and everything, this is what has happened. So now what we're going to be talking about today is what I call in metaphysics chemicalisation, and preparing for a sudden wealth and identity crisis. So we're going to really go deep into this. And this is, of course, made in part by, I have a free special report that is available to all of you. You can go to firstfrequencysuddenwealth.com and you can download this free special report, or you can make a donation if you'd like to do so, but you don't have to. And it's a special report on the consciousness and the concept of what sudden wealth means in first frequency. One of the things that we have a problem with, that as a result of our trauma, when we get extra $100 or extra $100,000 or an extra $1 million, we don't know what to do with that money, and we end up sabotaging that wealth, and then subsequently, depending upon the size of that wealth, sabotaging ourselves. And it's because we don't have a genetic memory of wealth. We don't have an understanding of it. And so as a result, we go into this trauma and we start to act maladaptively on our own behalf. So I did an interview with Nana, Dr. Patricia Newton, and we were getting ready to do a series of workshops together and webinars together. And then she transitioned. And so I dedicate this work to her. And also a brother who changed my life, Brother Stanley. Most people know him as MC Hammer. His name is Stanley Burrell. MC Hammer, I got an opportunity to sit across from him in Chicago. One of my mentors, Terry Williams, who was his publicist at the time. And Terry Williams is probably the best publicist of all time. I mean, she was responsible for Eddie Murphy's entire career. Miles Davis, Janet Jackson, Whitney Houston, Michael Jordan. I mean, she's just if it was anything black and great on television, in movies, and in music in the 90s and 2000s, it was probably Terry Williams. And so I got an opportunity to meet MC Hammer and sit across from him at the La Meridian Hotel in Chicago. And his story changed my life. And took me in a completely different direction. And so I share his sudden wealth story in this free special report. So go there and get that. And as we move forward with the information today, these kinds of things will begin to be put into perspective. Now, of course, as a minister, I always open up my lectures with our affirmation of power, prosperity, and protection. Right. And so what I will do is I will say it once, and then I will allow you to repeat it with me. And that is this: I am one with first frequency. I am one with the first thought idea. I am one with the firstborn people. I am one with the only one. Ashe, and so it is. Now, this is dedicated to 3 goddesses that shaped my life, my spiritual mothers who shaped my life, and still today continue to guide my life. And that is the Reverend Dr. Johnny Coleman, who's at the bottom of the page. And she always taught us that you are the thinker who thinks the thought that makes the thing. And then on the upper right-hand corner is Reverend Dr. Helen Carey. And then, of course, Nana Dr. Frances Cress Welsing. Ashe. What is first frequency of oneness? We help create a spiritual, psychological, and emotional barrier to the hidden signal of racial battle fatigue and racialized domestic terror. We remove the African and the African American from the effects of their false racial identities, which we call third and fourth frequency. We help the African and African American overcome their trauma bonding, capture bonding, and Stockholm syndrome to whiteness. Yes, sir, brother.
Your slides are not moving.
What are you seeing right now?
The very first slide of your baby picture.
Oh, wow, that's crazy. All right, let's see what's going on here. Hold on. I'm going to come out of the slide here, and are you able to see that?
We can see now a gray slide. What is the frequency of oneness?
Okay. So let's go. So let me thank you for that. So would it be better if I did it within the PowerPoint presentation, or would you want me to do full screen? How do you want me to do it, brother?
I like it full screen, to be honest with you. You know, the full PowerPoint presentation.
Okay, I'll try it again, and if it freezes on you, just let me know, and I'll just stop it and then move forward.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. So let's see if this comes up again. Are you able to see that now?
Yeah, but we can see the side. I don't know if you want us to see the side slide. So normally you can have a whole slide, take up the whole screen.
Right, I'm in full screen now. Are you able to see the full screen?
Not really, brother. It's still on
Oh, okay, that's weird. All right, let's see what we're going to do here. Hold on. Let's
Have you got more than one PowerPoint open?
No, only one.
Just one. So
so let's see. Hold on. Let me stop sharing here. Hold on a second. Let me figure this out. Because that worked perfectly last time. So I'm not sure why, but we're going to do it again. I'm going to share my screen. Wait a minute. You know what? I'm going to put it on another. Let me do this. I'm going to put my PowerPoint in another window.
That's right.
There we go. I'm going to put that in another window. Now we're going to hit share screen. And we're going to find that PowerPoint, and we're going to see if we can open it up.
Be patient, brothers and sisters. These things sometimes happen.
Now, let me ask you this. Are you able, it's getting ready to come up. Are you able to see that now in full screen?
Not really, sir. No.
Really?
Not really.
Wow, that's crazy. What is going on? So resume share. Okay, so how's that? Are you able to see that now?
No, we can see all the different slides at one time. It's like a
wow, this is crazy. Okay, so this is what we're gonna have to do, bro. Hold on, let me try to come out of here now. Of course, it's stuck. Wait a minute.
Take a deep breath. One of the sisters, one of the queens.
This is when you know you get ready to drop some knowledge. You're like, when stuff like this starts to happen, that's when you know it's like, oh, they're getting ready to mess with Rev Shock up in here.
You know,
that's all right. I got you, family. So we're just gonna go through it with within the PowerPoint frame. So let's just work through that. All right. So next slide. So who is Rev Shock Metaphysical Morpheus?
You're not on share screen yet, bro.
Oh shoot. Oh my goodness, this is insane. Now let's see, how do I want to do this? Okay, we'll do this. Share screen. Now, are you able to see that?
Yep.
All right, so I'm gonna move myself out the way there. I see the videos. Okay, so shall I go back, or is it good? What does the family need?
I mean, you can you play slideshow?
I did play slideshow, but it didn't.
All right, then you're gonna have to go by one, then, bro.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna have to do, brother, because I don't want it to miss. Now, do you want me to try? You want me to try to play the whole thing again? You know, from this slide.
Yeah.
You want me to try it and see? All right, I'm gonna hit play mode. Let's see what happens here, fam. Now, are you able to see the full presentation?
Not really, but I mean, it's as good as we're gonna get, bro.
Okay.
No, it was better before.
Okay, what do you need me to do?
As it was before, because we can't see the writing. It's really tiny now.
Okay. So let me stop. Hold on a second. Let me see if I can get out of here. All right. Now, where are we? Can you, are we still sharing?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So now you're able to read this and see this, yes?
Yes, just about.
Just about. Okay. So let me see if I can move this and make it a little bigger here. So sorry about that. I don't know why it's not playing in full screen. That usually is not a problem. Okay. All right. So who am I? Rev Shock, have a master's degree in metaphysical science and philosophy, currently working on my dissertation in the same field. For my doctorate, you can go to metaphysicalmorpheus.com. You can download, there's a fireside chat that I did with brother Billy B-Man Bird, who kind of went through my life history and life story. I'm the founding minister of First Frequency of Oneness, Science, Manifestation, and Prosperity. Shock, by the way, stands for Seeking Higher Omnipotent Conscious Knowledge. And I'm the founder of the Shock Metaphysics Virtual Comedic Wisdom School. I'm also the host of the Philippe Matthews Show. Most of you know me from that if you are into the global work. I've authored over 19 books and 7 best sellers on Amazon. Can using metaphysical meditation and affirmation daily heal the trauma of generational poverty in African Americans was my thesis that is available on academia.edu. And you can go there and download that for free. When we talk about trauma, I really mapped it out in a big way. Professor Kaba Hiawatha Kamene calls me the Marcus Garvey of our time. And Mark Victor Hansen, Chicken Soup for the Soul, calls me the Oprah of Internet. I recently released what the kids call an EP called Nothing is Wrong with Black People, Something Happened to Black People. And it's available on all streaming platforms. So you can go to Spotify, Apple Music, iTunes, Amazon Music, TikTok, everywhere. Just punch in Metaphysical Morpheus or punch in Nothing is Wrong with Black People. Download it, listen to it while you're working out, while you're driving, and get the knowledge and information of that nothing is wrong with us. This is what happened to us. Now, today's class is about chemicalization and the identity crisis for the hidden truth. Now, when we talk about this concept of chemicalization, it's a metaphysical term. And it basically means, it was so perfect that Lady Adele, what she brought, was so true and powerful, because this is what happens when people receive life-changing information that creates considerable cognitive dissonance. Old emotional programming and beliefs resist the new information, and they begin to experience an internal upheaval. And in fact, it doesn't have to necessarily be internal. It could be external as well. Ralph Waldo Emerson says, once the mind has been stretched by a new idea, it never returns to its original dimensions. And so this concept of chemicalization it throws you into what we call an identity crisis. And that identity crisis is fascinating, because how many times have you been given great information, it changed you, but then there's a part of you that might fight to go back to the old ways of thinking. And when that new information comes in, particularly those we've seen in the metaphysical communities, or just in quote unquote the woke communities, your relationships start to change. You start struggling, perhaps financially. You start attracting various different problems and challenges, and you don't know why this is happening, because you're thinking new. But it's because you have this old neural network of thinking that is based on the science that Lady Adele gave us. So you're rebutting, you're rebuking. You're like, no, I'm not going to fall for the okie doke. And then all of a sudden you start to go through this identity crisis. So let's talk about that. Now, in metaphysics, when we talk about this identity crisis, when Africans and African Americans are presented with a preponderance of overwhelming evidence that decolonizes their mind from second frequency Amu, or whiteness values, they will experience an identity crisis. Now, some of us have been woke, quote unquote, or conscious for a long time. Some of us are just coming into it. Most of us are in a layered effect. In other words, there is no sacred like level where you are so woke that that you can't go back to sleep again. Something you have. There's layers and levels to awareness and to consciousness. But here's the thing: because you are born into a lie, like I said, you're born a god and a goddess. You're taught how to be either a good go-along Negro or a nothing-ass nigger on the streets. Those are the only two choices Black people get, particularly Black men. When you come to the realization that you are not a Negro, you are not a nigga, you are not a false racial construct, that a false racial construct presented to you, you go through an identity crisis. There's a problem there where some people can't handle that level of truth, that they wake up and realize. It's like when you find out, some of you who are on this platform are pretty aware, when you find out that Christianity is false, when you find out Jesus never walked the earth, when you find these things out, it's like, it's like Santa Claus is not real anymore. It's like, well, what happened here? You go through this identity crisis, and then you try to go back and try to fix it, but you can't, because you can't go back to that way of thinking anymore. Dr. Wade Noble says we suffer from a shattered consciousness and a fractured identity. And what does that mean? It says because we suffer from this syndrome, the African and African American has always suffered from needing a cosign from second frequency Amu and feeling validated. This is what Lady Adele was talking about earlier, where they're trying to make you so codependent on their system that you no longer think for yourself. In fact, you just no longer think. You're a dog, you're a sheep, you're to be herded, if you will. So those who are addicted and trauma bonded to whiteness will need a cosign from a white person or institution. We've all heard this term that white ice is colder, right? So we don't work with ourselves and with each other. We will, if it's white, it's supposed to be right. And so we're conditioned that way. And that's called trauma bonding. That's called capture bonding. And that's called Stockholm syndrome. I have an entire presentation just on the addiction that we have to whiteness. You have to understand, when you are born, or at least I'm going to use myself as an example. When I was born, I was immediately introduced, when I went to school, I was immediately introduced to what I call the three white boys. The white boy on the boat, which was Columbus, the white boy, imaginary white boy on the stick, which was Jesus, and the white boy in the sky, which was God. At that point, I no longer saw myself in humanity. Everything was white to me. And white must be right, so that means I must be what? Wrong. And so once you have that, once a child's mind whose brain and nervous system is not fully developed, once they get that, that's called assimilation. That's a war tactic, right? That's where the fractured consciousness and identity comes from. Because you actually think that, and you probably refer to yourself at some point in one time as a Negro or a nigger, and that's not the case. That's not who you are. But because you have been so successfully assimilated, you are going through this identity crisis when you are moving toward what Dr. Obadashaka refers to as a pre-disturbance or disturbance that moves you into your African identity. In fact, when I was conditioned to be a Negropean, I didn't want anything to do with Africa. I looked at all the folks walking around with funny names because I thought my name was right and their name was wrong. That's the conditioning and how you become a sheep. And so that intersection between old information, old programming that you were birthed into, to this new level of programming that you're receiving, creates an identity crisis. This is also due in part to our axiology. Dr. Edwin Nichols was on our show yesterday, and he just tore the house down. And the axiology is the study of human values. And so the axiology of the African is person to person, whereas the axiology of the Amu or second frequency European is person to the object. And this is why they objectify everything, and everyone and everything is property that they have to have ownership of, they have to have control of. But we're people to people, person to person. And so one of the problems and the mistake is that we look at them as we see us, and that's the mistake that we make And then our feelings are hurt and we're disappointed, and then we're locked into this perpetual level of confusion. So let's continue on. Professor Kabahaya Wathakamane says that it is natural when you are in an unnatural environment to act unnaturally, right? So when we're faced with these three white boys in our formative years, that's not our natural environment. We're not in our natural environment. Lady Adele just showed you that is not a natural environment, but it's what we live every single day. So it's natural that we would act unnaturally, right? So here's what happens. So I'm going to go deep into this. When the second frequency Amu began to lose their colonizing power of whiteness and privilege, they too suffer an identity crisis. And what is happening here in America is that white folks are losing their damn minds because they're losing their colonizing power, and the government is doing everything it can to try to capture, corral, and control this population. But particularly Black folk, we ain't and we're not even Black folks. African Americans and African folk are not having it, right? So when we look at this concept of an identity crisis, the actual definition is personal psychosocial conflict, especially in adolescence, that involves confusion about one's social role and often a sense of lost continuity to one's personality. It also says that a state of confusion is an institution or organization regarding its nature or direction. So when you're born white in this false racial construct called white, and you're told, and you don't even have to be told, but if you're told that you are white, white is right, white is on top, you have certain privileges for which other people are denied. When that gets challenged, you go into that child goes into an identity crisis. And so in your adolescence, you'll see that there's a lot of young people. I don't know about the UK, but I know here in the States, a lot of white adolescents are killing themselves because they can't handle the level of truth that and the reality that they're not in control, or that their parents are no longer in control, and their parents have lost levels of social status. Now, I want to play to you. I created and brought a lot of clips for this particular conversation that I want to play to you, so you can kind of get an idea of what's going on here on the ground. Can you hear that?
Not really, sir.
How's that?
What are we supposed to do? Okay, the Supreme Court's not helping us. No one's helping us. Only us can help us.
Yes,
only we can do it.
Now, I just want you to get that part. I'm going to play the rest of it, but I wanted you to hear what they're saying. We're not in control anymore. What's happening to it? They're going through, this is the identity crisis of whiteness. This is what we're seeing for the first time. We've never seen this in America before in this way. This is what's happening.
A mass group of Trump supporters stormed the U.S. Capitol on Wednesday to stop the certification of what they believe was a fraudulent election.
Unquestionable that our votes were stolen. It's unquestionable. There's so much proof.
Look at this. Black people drove white people up the damn wall. This is real facts up here, family. This is insane to me.
We want our representatives to do the right thing and be certified like the 7 swing states.
Also, look at the age of the ones that are doing the most talking. Those are the ones that are becoming extinct. We're going to go into that in a moment.
They're losing their power. And his allies as they continued to lie that the election was stolen.
Let's have trial by combat. He just said trial by combat. I'm ready. I'm ready.
People marched down 2 avenues to the Capitol, and once they got there, some broke through barricades. Once a few rioters broke into the building, the mob followed.
I was actually here while this guy started breaking in with a cane. Obviously, there's a power struggle. There's the peaceful guys that were like, no, we don't want to do that. Then there was that guy. You know, he just said, well, oh well, I'm breaking it in.
So let's talk about this understanding. This is what I want you to see, because I don't know if they're playing these same clips in your neck of the woods, as they say. But I want you to be able to understand and decode this as to why they're acting the way they're acting. Now, I'm going to introduce you to, when I was speaking in Africa with Dr. Susan Tata on her platform, I introduced this concept called the third mutation, the auto-genocide of whiteness, the psychopathy and sociopathy, because it's not natural to be white. And so I want you to really get this, that it's never been natural to be white, but there are 3 mutations that the AMU has gone through. Now, let's first define auto-genocide. Auto-genocide is the arbitrary or ideologically inspired mass murder of a country's citizens by its own ethnic group against its own ethnic group. So before a species experiences the extinction protocol of autogenocidal genetic annihilation, they first become irrelevant and suffer a loss of value and a diminished sense of significance. This is what whiteness is seeing and feeling for the very first time. And they don't know what to do and how to handle this. So now, the first mutation, if you've been in the conscious community, you know about the Ice Age theory, Dr. Sheikh Anta Diop's Civilization and Barbarism, that these people, these Africans were trapped in the Caucasus region for over 100,300 years, where they were trapped in the worm glaciation, which was the last ice age. And as a result, over time, I had a conversation with Dr. David Imhotep, who wrote who did the research, took over Dr. Van Sertima's work. His book is The First Americans Were Africans. And he goes into this amazing deep dive as I had this conversation with him about, it was the last 5,000 years of generations. And by the way, if you put, I think, 100,300 years into 25 years, generationally, we're talking about a little over 44,000 generations to for the African to depigment themselves, to devolve. What happened in the ice, particularly in the last 5,000 of those years, based on the research from our scholars, is that they devolved. In other words, you know, while Africa, the world, is evolving, the moment the ice came up from the ground, it didn't come from top down, it came from the bottom up, and it happened so gradually over time. There's a concept about how do you cook a frog? You put a frog in cold water, and then you turn on the heat, and as it gradually begins to boil, because it's a slow boil, the frog doesn't know, and so it ends up dying and being boiled to death. Well, the ice did the opposite for us. It devolved the African and became and created a recessively genetic species. So that's the first mutation. And hopefully, if this is making sense, put some ones in the chat. And Andrew, if you wanted to come out and have a comment or a question, you may do so, because I really want the family to understand those last 5,000 years, we're looking at temperatures between 200 to 400 below zero that will create a psychopathic process in the brain. This is where the concept of the frozen pineal gland comes from. Dr. Edwin Nichols, in his work in axiology, talks about how the person to the object is created and was created in this first mutation in the ice. They, as a result, had only 3 months sometimes to develop a crop and to nurture the crop. Otherwise, everybody died, right? And this happened again and again and again. And as a result, it causes you to want to survive over everything. So resources, owning property, not caring about and not having feelings or emotions Also, because you're devolving, because the environment is recessively causing your genetics to become weak and brittle and fragile, hence the term white fragility. As a result of your recessive genetics and the result of a frozen pineal gland, meaning that when you devolve from the ice, you're not able to spiritually connect to first frequency. Your first frequency is the creator. That the creator said, I love myself and my people so much that when I replicate and duplicate, I'm going to create the African, which was the first frequency, the first concept, the first idea. When we went into the ice and became depigmented and began to devolve and became recessively genetic, a new species was created. So God doesn't make mistakes, but nature makes corrections. So in this ice, this is what has happened. So I just kind of wanted to give you an understanding of that level of mutation. It happened over so many generations that it looked like it was normal. It looked like it was natural, but it was nothing natural about them. So then here, and by the way, the concept of a mutation comes from first Professor Kabahaya Kamene, who teaches us that the first mutation was the ice, and then he taught us the second mutation. The second mutation is when the ice melted and they became aware that there's an entire population of beautiful melanated African people. They had a choice to make. Usually what happens is in nature, if there's an albino plant, animal, insect, whatever happens, the goal is for it to go back and mate to with the original archetype, so it won't end up walking itself off the timeline of creation. In other words, the moment that they inbred, they've started to move themselves into extinction. And that's the autogenocidal process that we're going to be talking about, that when you don't go back into the archetype and you inbreed, and we understand what inbreeding is, the production of offspring from the mating or breeding of individuals or organisms that are closely related genetically. So they develop what we call a xenophobia, the fear of the foreign. They decided to go into what Dr. Francis Cress Welsing refers to as reaction formation, where they looked at all of these beautiful melanated bodies, realized that they were recessively genetic. They didn't have the terminology of that at the time, but they felt obviously some kind of way. They had no spiritual system. They were barbaric. They slept with their animals. They had relations with their animals. These were beastly people, and there's a lot of data that comes out of the concept of the caveman and the Neanderthal as a result of who these people were. And so they began to inbreed, which created another layer and level of psychopathic and sociopathic behavior. Now, fast forward to what I refer to now as the third mutation, and that is, in America, the invention of white people. It is not natural, family, to be white. Anyone that refers to themselves as a white person is referring themselves of something that is not natural. It's a different species. It's a mutation of a mutation of a mutation. And as a result, when you are looking into those brown eyes, those blue eyes or those green eyes or whatever color those eyes are, when you're looking at a white person, or you're not looking at that, they're not white, they're European, but they have 2 generations of mutations. And so this is the problem that we're having, because as the axiology says, we're person to person, people to people. We want them to treat us as we treat each other. That's not going to happen, because that is not the nature of the species. So let's go in a little deeper here when we talk about it's not natural to be white. So since it's not a natural occurrence in nature, white people, whiteness is a psychopathic, sociopathic idea. It's an idea invented by a group of desperate, fragile British European men. Yeah, I'm blaming y'all. British men between 1664 and 1681, which were called the anti-miscegenation laws or anti-miscegenation laws. who thought it was a good idea to invent a divide and conquer strategy, a false racial construct of people who believe they must have special privilege over the dominant global population of African people in order to exist and survive. And again, this complements Lady Adele's research and her scholarship. When we understand that in response to Bacon's rebellion, which was a fight that occurred that was similar to what you saw in the insurrection of what Donald Trump was trying to do, where that was very successful, that they went after, the poor people went after the elite. And so as a result, they decided to create a divide and conquer strategy. And they invented this new level of humanity called white people. Completely false, but made up. But by matter of law, this is what they did. There's no biological evidence of making up a label and a false racial construct called white people. This white mimetic ideology became a thought virus that jumped from person to person, became airborne or conscious, and infected billions of Africans worldwide. So let's get into the understanding that in these anti-miscegenation laws, 3 of them, there was a cluster of them. And most people, when they think of anti-miscegenation law, is that it's to stop the mixing of the races, which is part of it. But there are 3 things that happen. I talked about this, I think, the last time that I was here, but it needs to be repeated. And we need to condition ourselves to memory for it. The first one was that a person of African descent could not run for office or vote. The second in the anti-miscegenation law was a person of African descent could not own a gun or guns or gunpowder. So they could not eat, they couldn't defend themselves. They were completely made helpless. And this was really an assault to the African man. This is when African men became boys. The third law was that a person of African descent could not sue or take any type of legal action against this new designation of false humanity called white. So that's what brought us to this conversation today and the situation that we're in. This false racial construct of white is what we're looking at. Now, Dr. Jacqueline Badalora, I did an interview with her. This is what she says. There are only 2 reasons, and she's a great historian. Her book is Birth of a White Nation. There's only 2 reasons that white people were invented.
Let me just sum up what the story, this historical information reveals to us about whiteness, white people as they were invented. We were invented. So we know that white people were built upon the idea that the British elite had of themselves as white, as Christian, as freeborn, and as deserving of rights and privileges from which others can be denied. So that you learn through an analysis of the laws through which they created and asserted this entirely new group of humanity called white people. And then the historical context reveals to us that white people were invented to divide. We have served that purpose ever since.
Wow, that's a very powerful statement.
To divide humanity, and the flip side of that is to protect and ensure the interests of the 1%.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only reason white people exist.
So there you have it. I'm sure you've never heard it from an Amu before, but many of the Amu historians, this is what we know. They were invented, whiteness was invented to divide and conquer humanity and to protect the 1%. And when that is challenged, this is what happens. Now, I came up with an equation, family, that you can write down. And so chemicalisation and the identity crisis that white people are dealing with is what I call WP plus WF equals WR. When white people were invented, it created instantly white privilege or power for those people. That's Dr. Peggy McIntosh's work. When white privilege is challenged, it creates white fragility. Dr. Robin DiAngelo. But when white fragility is challenged, it creates white rage. If this makes sense, give me some ones and something. Show me a little something, something in the chat. If this makes sense.
Easy, Rasta. Rasta, easy.
I just love you, Andrew. I need you like on my dresser every morning as like cheering me on. You know, this is great. Andrew makes me feel like a great guy. Okay, so now here's the thing. So when we're dealing with whiteness, we're dealing with autogenocide because they can't handle the truth. They can't handle the fact they don't know they're not white. They don't know that they're a mutation of a mutation of a mutation. And so they end up choosing only three sides: genocide, kill the other; homicide, kill each other; suicide, kill ourselves. So now I'm giving this framework to you so you can look at the behavior of particularly what's happening on this continent. I think in your neck of the woods, I think it's called Brexit. I think there's some similarities there. I'm not sure about all of that level of history, but there are some issues that are coming up globally because their numbers are diminishing so greatly and so rapidly. As a result, white people are losing their damn minds. And so this is known as birth dearth. Birth dearth is what happens when a population does not have enough children to repopulate the species or that particular group, and they end up becoming extinct. So there's a lot of autogenocidal behaviors, processes that are in place that are causing this to happen. So let's watch this.
An alarming story about rising death rates among white adults in America. WSJ's special writer Betsy McKay joins us now to discuss. Thanks for being here, Betsy.
Thanks for having me.
As you point out in your piece, this trend is shocking for an economically advanced country like the United States. What is driving the uptick in deaths?
Well, this is a really interesting study, and it follows on some work done about a year and a half ago by the same two economists at Princeton, which found that mortality was rising among middle-aged Americans. So then they set out to figure out a couple of things. One, how widespread was that problem? And secondly, what might be driving it? So what they found in their new paper is that mortality is rising, not just for middle-aged Americans, but for Americans between 25 and 64 years of age. And what's driving that really is our rises in mortality in people who have a high school education or less. So working class Americans. For people with a college degree, mortality is still declining. So to have, mortality rise in a developed nation is very, very unusual. And we've, our mortality rates have been declining for decades.
Right.
They posit a hypothesis, which is really interesting. They examined a ton of data, economic data, health data from national sources. And what they believe is going on is that the types of jobs available to working class Americans have changed since the 70s. They're less stable, more minimum wage jobs, less opportunity for advancement. And at the same time, there are a lot of social trends, decline in marriage, more cohabitation, more children born out of wedlock, more social isolation, families aren't stable.
Right, and so you touched on education and also the workforce. These deaths of despair, especially with the opioid crisis we've seen in America, they believe are leading more white adults to die younger. Is that correct?
That's correct. And they do point out that these trends were, underway before the opioid epidemic took off. I mean, opioids were really introduced in the 90s, and the epidemic has kind of taken off in the 2000s, whereas changes were starting to occur, before the mid-90s. But the opioid epidemic has definitely accelerated it. And then on top of that, you have alcohol-related liver diseases, and you have suicide. Suicide and opioids are often tied. It's hard to tell sometimes whether a drug overdose was intentional or accidental.
Right. Well, it's also interesting because these studies always look at race. And here the researchers found that Blacks and Hispanics face many of the same income struggles as the white working class, yet they've experienced a decline in mortality rates. So how do you make sense of that?
Yeah, well, so that's the puzzle for everyone. What they say is that for whites, for working class whites, times were better earlier. So in other words, there was an expectation, more of an expectation of life improving. Whereas for Blacks and Hispanics, you know, they've been moving up, certainly, you know, some parts of those populations, and there wasn't the you know, they believe there just wasn't the expectation that with every generation you're going to live better than your parents.
Let me just pause that for a moment so that we can, I just want to isolate that section for a moment, if I may. This is where the concept Make America Great comes in again, right? It's never been great for Africans and African Americans, but there was a point and a time when they were prosperous. I mean, think about it, free labor for almost 300 years. Yeah, that was when America was great for white people, and their mortality rate increased. They lived longer, they were healthier. But guess what? Now, as a result of what has happened with the truth, because truth can't, you know, nature cannot die. Nature cannot die. Truth cannot die. And guess what Africans and African Americans are? We're the truth. We are the first nature. We're the creator's first nature. And so that's why we survive. Now we are wounded and we're scarred and we have some, you know, we have our own mental issues. But this is a fight that is a fight of genetic proportion. This is a fight of consciousness. This is a fight that they are becoming extinct. They don't know, or they haven't put together the differences in their mutations. So they're just looking at this from an economic standpoint.
Also, you know, think what needs to be explored is they posit the idea that anti-poverty programs have been of more benefit to Blacks, whereas whites might not have been able to benefit from them. Their, you know, salaries might have been high enough so that they don't qualify.
Last but not least, one of the biggest stories today is the healthcare vote. We could be seeing some
All right, so I'm going to let that fly. So that, I just wanted you to understand that they know they are suffering from a birth dearth. They know they are dying off as a population, but they don't know what to do about it. And there's so many factors that are happening as a result. So when we look at auto-genocide, 50-plus-year-old white men and women storming the Capitol building, climbing the walls, stealing podiums, breaking and entering, wearing Viking attire and t-shirts in the dead of winter. Mind you, in the dead of winter, in a raging pandemic, is auto-genocidal behavior. So that's due to the chemicalization of their identity crisis, because they feel that one of the problems that I have when we talk about this concept of the Negro or the Negropean or the coon or the third frequency, when people say I am not African, I'm American, what you're saying is that you're white. Because America was white before it was 100 years, family, before the Constitution was written. These anti-miscegenation laws were put in place. Whiteness had been invented. 100 years before the Constitution, 100 years before that, before Jefferson and all of the presidents were born, before race was a concept. It took another 100 years to create the concept, the false concept of race doesn't exist. Before the first meeting of Congress, white was established. When you live and create a lie, eventually you're going to run out of time. You're going to run into the truth. And this is what's happening. When you see America, or the situation, I think, with you in the UK with Brexit, when you see these middle-aged white people losing their damn minds, is because our job is just to get the hell out of the way. You can't help them, you can't save them, nor should you. This is a genetic response. This is not a natural species that has taken over this planet. And so they're doing everything they can to matter. Which is why when you say Black Lives Matter, they have to say all lives matter, because they feel they don't matter. Nature did this to them, not African people. So white people or whiteness is not a natural, normal, or reflect any semblance of mental health. Mentally healthy people don't do this. People genetically recessive that sense their extinction and their auto-genocide and irrelevance, yeah, they do that. Right? But the African, we don't fear extinction. We fear death, but we don't fear extinction. and autogenocidal extinction. And that's the difference of what we're fighting. So to be a little funny, when we look at what happened in the Capitol and everything, let's look at Kaepernick. So he's disrespecting the flag. Look at what just happened. But this brother can't get a job in doing what he does because he's disrespecting the flag. All right, let's look at a little bit more footage here.
And I just want you to look at these pictures. Two men, two different flags. Two men who showed up in the service of this president's lies. One desecrating the nation's capital, carrying a Confederate battle flag. One desecrating the American flag itself, using it to beat a police officer. Wouldn't you rather someone kneel? Seems more respectful to me.
So this is where it comes, this is where, as Malcolm says, chickens have come home to roost. Now, what happens when we are dealing with chemicalization and the identity crisis? There is a cognitive bias known as the backfire effect. Now, the backfire effect is a psychological phenomenon where people not simply reject facts that contradict their established beliefs, but also hold a stronger, reassuring lies. The election was stolen. I know it was stolen. There's no way that Biden could have won. Why? Because Black people voted this guy in. This was an African movement in America. And so they don't want to talk about that. So they're in denial of that. We're supposed to be less than human. It don't matter anyway. So of course the votes don't count, right? That's the backfire effect bias that is happening. They can't handle the truth. They can't see the truth. This is actually biological in its nature. So Dr. Gleb Sapersky says sticking to pre-existing beliefs that do not align with reality causes us to develop unrealistic expectations, and we inevitably grow stressed, anxious, and depressed when our bubble is popped by the sharp needle of reality. Hopefully this is making sense to you, family, and this is beginning to paint an understanding and a picture and a framework that you'll be able to move forward and be able to see that in how the Amu acts and responds no matter what continent it is, whether that's in Africa, whether that's in the UK, whether that's here in America or any part of the world. When we look at governments and power and situation, this is what they're doing. They're trying to maintain their relevancy. They don't know that they're going to be they're engaged in auto extinction. They recognize the birth dearth, but they think that they can cheat nature as they always have. They think they're bigger and better than nature. They're the opposite or antithesis of nature. We are one with nature. So we're going to be okay. Remember when I was here last time and I did the joke about the Joey riding his bike off the cliff? Your mom used to say, hey, if Joey rides his bike off the cliff, are you going to do it too? Well, many of us we don't have a bike. We're on Joey's handlebars. So if we're on Joey's handlebars and Joey is going off the cliff, we're in a bad way, right? So what we have to do is we got to get ourselves the hell out of the way and let nature do its job. Now, nature is the arc is evolution is slow. Some things are going to happen in our time. A lot of things are not going to happen in our time. But you can definitely rest assured that it will always be on time. So as a result, what you are seeing is the beginning of this extinction, this genetic response to their extinction. So the backfire effect, as it relates to whiteness attitudes, goes beyond just being stubborn. The recessive genes literally cannot see the truth or accept it. Therefore, they develop a stronger attachment to their incorrect beliefs. Dude really thinks he won the election. I'm not bullshitting. He thinks he won the election. We got Maury Povich up here saying, dude, you are not the president of the United States, dude. It's just not happening. But this is what happens when you are psychopathic and sociopathic. This is why you have to have your right state of mind and understand there is nothing wrong with Black people. Something happened to Black people and it was them. So understand, This is what D.L. Hughley had to say.
Michael Jackson, PYT, the news, breaking news. There are men and women protesters storming the Capitol. These are not protesters. These are rebels. These are people trying to thwart an attempt to throw over the government. They are trying to thwart the will of the American people. They have lost, and now they are taking their anger out on the people that they feel they can intimidate. You lost. Move on. And this is all at the behest of the President of the United States of America, aided by almost 200 senators, some in the Congress and some in the Senate, who are now giving air and grievance to an unnecessary thing. You lost, but white men know that when they lose, they get something, General. If you run a team into the ground, you get to be an assistant on another team. You get a severance package. If you are a corporation and you run a corporation to the ground, you get a golden parachute because you always land on your feet. If you start a war with a country, the United States of America, you get the Electoral College, which gives you false power that you have not earned or do not deserve. Because the Constellation Prize is something you storm, you pout, you threaten death, and you get something for it. You lost. Your way lost. Yeah, and I get this decided impression that it would be going a lot differently if instead of Proud Boys, the police would be showing as much restraint. If instead of Proud Boys, it were Black boys storming the Capitol. You lost. Your way lost. It lost in Georgia. This is the first time Warnock winning that Senate seat is the very first time in Georgia history where a Black man beat a white woman and didn't get lynched. Purdue now, instead of eating chicken, is eating crow. This is what happens. You lost your way lost. You cannot intimidate or murder your way into power anymore. It is over for your way of life. And this is what happens when things crumble.
So there it is. I mean, it's being said. We see it. We understand it. We get it. But so do they at that level. And they can't handle it. And that is what creates what we call cortical shutdown. So when the prefrontal cortex, when cortical shutdown occurs due to the backfire effect, it affects a part of the brain known as the VMPFC, or ventral medial prefrontal cortex. That's the section right here that's purple. This part of the brain regulates our level of stress, or the ability to handle stress. When that part of the brain cannot function, we start to act maladaptively, as in case we start climbing Capitol walls. We start protesting and saying that the election was stolen. When the VMPFC of whites begin to break down and they go through cortical shutdown due to the backfire effect, this is what happens, this is what occurs. It affects us as well, but I just wanted to give you an understanding of what it looks like on their side, on their end. So as we begin to wind down here, I want you to understand that you're going to go through several different stages of chemicalization. But what's happening is that you are awakening. What Brother Andrew has done for my research on this brother, as a result of, I think this is my third time with the UK family. What Brother Andrew has done, he has put together a process of awakening Africans that is literally shocking. I mean, the information that the brother brings and the people that he brings, and when he does these like what he's doing with Blade and Doctor Strange, and that stuff, man, will mess your mind up if you are trying to hold on to old ways of thinking. And so this is a shock to the system. And so I like the analogy of what happens when we go through chemicalization and we begin to wake up. One of my favorite scenes is the scene in The Matrix that I'm going to play for you now. This is why they call me the metaphysical Morpheus.
He still needs a lot of work. Your muscles have atrophied.
And this is the truth of what has happened to us. You have never used your eyes before. That is what hidden truth. That is what Brother Andrew Muhammad is bringing to you. And that's why your eyes hurt. Go ahead, Brother Andrew.
I'll just add, brother, because I wanted to say very quickly, because I don't want to stop the brother. He's on a roll right now. But brothers and sisters, I'm hoping, please, because sometimes I think, are we ready for this message? Because as the brother's dropping science and facts down, notice the brother is not hyperventilating, he's not frothing at the mouth, he's not shouting in hysteria. This is truth multiplied by truth. And once you understand that, brothers and sisters, you don't have to react on an emotional tip. You understand it's a masterclass. And in truth, even if, because I know there are white people listening to this, European people, British people listening to this.
Yeah, it's not about, it's, you know, we're not trying to down anybody. Nobody's better or worse. This is science.
Come on, brother. And if you understand this, it's a message of healing for both people. Yeah, this is about understanding and appreciating. This is such a brilliant session. And just to say this to you, brothers and sisters, I don't want to stop the brother, and I really apologize. I was trying to tell, but brothers and sisters, in the near future, myself and Reverend Shock, which we call him the metaphysical Morpheus, the first frequency, we are going to do a joint session.
Yes.
Breaking down the matrix. And I'm telling you, brothers and sisters, you ain't seen anything yet until you see the transatlantic combination of myself and Reverend Shock going into the matrix for today.
I'm going to teach you how to collapse time.
Sorry, Reverend, carry on, King.
No problem, my brother. I'm excited as heck about that. That's gonna be just complete, what they say, epic. But you bring up a great point, brother Andrew, and that is my ministry, my movement, my scholarship is not based on self-esteem. It's based on science. I don't care how you feel. I just care that you feel something. I don't care what you think, as Dr. John Henry Clark would say. I care that you think. So it's not a lot of, it's no hyperbole. I don't have to hype this up. You just have to do the primary research. In Africa, that's known as TEP HESEB, T-E-P-H-E-S-E-B, TEP HESEB. TEP HESEB is the term means accurately knowing by using the correct method. Today, we would call that the scientific method. But this is what this is based on. So my ministry is not based on shouting and jumping up and down and giving false relief and false pretense and false white boys and people on sticks and we don't do any of that. It's based on science, and I'm bringing it to you so you can understand why nothing is wrong with you. Nothing is wrong with Black people. Not a damn thing. We are perfect, whole, and complete. That's how we were born. That's how we were meant to be. Do you think that when the Creator decided to create the first frequency human, first frequency African, do you think that the Creator would create something fragile? No, we are a fact of nature. What happened to the Africans that went into the ice became the freaks of nature. And I'm sorry, I can't change that. That was nature. Black people didn't have anything to do with it, white people. You are who you are by what you are, but you are genetically recessive. Mae Jemison went up into the first African astronaut, went up to do a study on bone density to find out who had the strongest bones to be able to live in space. Because of course, the Amu, second frequency white, wants to get off of this planet, and they want to know, can they survive? No. What do you think Mae Jemison discovered when she went up there and studied bone density in space? Who had the strongest bones? Go ahead, I'll wait. Yep, it was the African female.
Teach!
The African female is the strongest species because Lucy was first. Do you come on, let's use our common sense. Do you think the Creator would create something that could not survive its own making? Why do you think we're so resilient? Why do you think we're still here? Why do you think that no matter what they have done to us, we still rise? Why do you think that? We're first frequency. We don't die, we multiply. We are the best of the best, but we have been taught a lie. We've been birthed into it intergenerationally, epigenetically, and we think something's wrong with us. Not a damn thing is wrong with us. We are the best of the best. You have to go through an identity crisis and a chemicalization because You don't know how to walk the earth as a god or a goddess yet. You don't know how to act because you're in an unnatural environment. So that's why you're acting unnaturally. All right, so let's go into this as we wrap it up. So I made a list of things that we need to do. Number one, we need to engage in what's called a whiteout. I got this concept from Dr. Joy DeGruy, who wrote the book and did the research called Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome, PTSS. Reduce your proximity to whiteness. So whatever that looks like. For me, because I have been able to master the internet and master time and be able to collapse time, I don't have to go to a white institution to earn money. I don't have to go to a white person to earn money. I'm completely self-sufficient, and I work with the community, and I work with Black people for Black people only, exclusively, end of story. So that reduces my proximity to whiteness. I don't allow whiteness to enter into my home. I don't engage in conversations, dinner, and socializations with them. This is when we talk about whiteout, we have to understand that we have to create a new level of segregation that works for us, not against us. Because there was a study done by Dr. William A. Smith. I think I put that up on the screen last time I was here. I'm not sure. If not, I'll bring it up back. He did the research called that termed the phrase racial battle fatigue. He found that there were literally psychological and physiological problems that come from being in white spaces continuously. White people literally make us sick. That's why I say we ain't sick. We're sick from being around sick people. So the understanding of this, that when you start to reduce your proximity, you begin to heal. But here's the thing: if you are addicted, trauma bonded, and capture bonded to whiteness, when you start to remove yourself from them, you start yearning for them. It's like a drug. It's like a heroin. I gotta get that snowflake. I gotta be around the snow. I gotta have it. You have to understand that is part of the virus. Their virus, they actually omit. Otieno Warrorio from the continent gave us the history and the science. I wrote about it in my book called Hidden Signal, where they literally omit an actual frequency and virus of submission and oppression. So this is science, not self-esteem. So as a result, that's why you feel some kind of way. And so it hijacks and uses our natural axiology against us of being people to people, person to person, because we want to treat them like we treat everyone. We want to treat everyone like Ma'at. You can't. So you have to do what I'm considering to introduce to the community as suspended axiology, where you suspend your natural axiology, and when you are around them, you act according to how they act. Dr. Edwin Nichols, who was on the show yesterday, confirmed my new ideology, if you will, a concept, and that is you go to work white and you come home Black. In other words, when you are around them, you treat them person to the object. When you're with your people, you treat them with your natural axiology, which is person to person or people to people. Cleanse your trauma bond, your capture bonding and Stockholm syndrome. Change your language. Recognize nothing is supreme about white. If you notice, I don't use. I'm excavating this terminology out of my system, out of my DNA. Every time you speak the word. The words white supremacy, you're automatically putting yourself below. Stop it. There's nothing supreme about them. They're the most fragile, recessive people. So what I do is I say, rather than supreme, I say white fragilite, a white recessive, or genetic recessive. Speak the actual science. Use the language of science. It is not about race, because race is a false construct. Just speak the language of science, and nothing white is a lie. Supreme in association to white is a lie. So that is not the truth. There's no science to support that white is supreme. Check your secondary and tertiary game, your addiction to trauma, your addiction to whiteness, as I talked about earlier. We are addicted to it. So when we, I always joke about, you know, if we ever had to do a this versus them situation where we had to negotiate to get our own sovereignty, I would have to say, all right, I need to talk to Costco, the people who own Costco, Jeff Bezos who owns Amazon, because I love those white people. I love that white organization, right? But I don't deal with them on a one-to-one basis. But Amazon is particularly in the pandemic, and Costco and everything that delivers is absolutely fantastic. So take the scholarship, and this is very true. And I had this conversation with Professor Kaba. The scholarship, take what you need. It's like taking your money back, taking the things that were stolen from you back. Take the best and leave the rest. Dr. John Henry Clark taught us that. So as a result, it's okay to pull information from them, look at their scholarship. Some of their scholarship is fantastic, but just don't hang out with the scholar. That's all I'm saying. When you are, when your true African identity is restored, which is what Dr. Obadiah Shaka refers to as 6-fold stages to mental freedom, you will realize that you have not and have never been sick or mentally ill. You have been sick and mentally ill from being captured, corralled, and controlled by sick, mentally ill people. Treat all species with dignity and ma'at. That is just our basic nature. But realize that you're dealing with a species that suffers from a psychological and biological virus due to 3 mutations that they're completely unaware of. They're completely unaware of. Think about people you've known that were sick. And this is unfortunate. Some of us, it could be family members. You had a cancer, didn't know you had a cancer. It was misdiagnosed, undiagnosed, or wasn't seen. You've been sick all this time and didn't know it. This is what we're dealing with this species, with these 3 mutations. Insulate, inoculate, and protect yourself from second frequency viruses as you would treat any other virus protocol. So they tell you in COVID, you know, when you come in, you wear a mask, right? You distance yourself socially. You come in and you wash your hands. Now I say you wash your hands spiritually. You spiritually wash your hands from being around the Amu. And I'm going to give you a concept that that Brother Billy Bird has produced for the family that gives you the process to be able to restore your first frequency signal, to reconnect and strengthen your first frequency signal. Because whiteness is a lie and a false racial construct, first frequency can never, and should never be honest with inherently unconscious, dishonest people. You must learn to lie, deflect, redirect any and all questions that that you are asked by whiteness that they want to know, to interrogate you so that they can defeat you. See, there are white people right now that might be listening that say, I'm so sorry. Oh my God, I didn't want to hurt anybody. How can I be less white? How can you help? See, they're going to co-opt you and say, how can you help me be less violent towards you, which is absolutely insanity. But that's a tactic and a technique of fragility. As a result, you never tell them the truth. You never talk to them and tell them about what you are, who you are, why you are the way that you are. That is something that they're trying to use to figure out how they're going to survive. This is a fight of nature. This is not a terrestrial fight. This is a celestial fight. This is now in consciousness, family. Nature is taking care of this. You've got to get out of the way, and you've got to know how to maneuver when you are in war and at war, and know that you are always in war and at war and have been before you were born. All right, let's move on as we wind down. When in proximity to second frequency, be mindful and aware of what's known as secondary syndrome, whereby you may unconsciously become contaminated by the virus and begin taking on the symptoms of second frequency, no differently than medical students who show signs and symptoms of the diseases they are in constant study of during their medical career. My queen is a nurse of 45 years. She hit me to the science called secondary syndrome, where students, because they're studying and being in proximities for so long to studying these diseases, they come down with the symptoms. Now, when I say we're not sick, we're sick from being around what? White people? That's what I'm talking about. So the more you're around them, the sicker you become, and then you start acting like them. Then you start harming your own people. You become the Beckys and the Karens, the Black Beckys and Karens to your own people. This is how the Negropean is created. This is how third frequency is created, because you're you're suffering from secondary syndrome. You're around something sick, and so as a result, you start taking on the symptoms of that which you are around and that which is sick. Is this making sense? If so, please put a 1 in the chat. If you want to give me a holler out, Andrew, make me feel good about myself, I appreciate it.
We get it, bro. We've got it. We've got it.
Number 11. It is best. It is best. Thank you, brother. It's best to engage, not to engage in a cold turkey disconnection. Now, what I did is I went cold turkey and I went into a whiteout. I just stopped because I was able to do so. I just stopped and said, okay, what happens if I just stop listening to white music, if I stop watching white shows, commercials, TV, television, news, if I take out all of these, all of the frequencies of the Amu in my space, what will happen? And it was the craziest damn thing. And that was, I began to feel better. I began to heal. I had better sleep. I did have a little anxiety where I was, I saw my own trauma bonding to whiteness. And that was my, my addiction to Amazon and Costco. When I go shopping, I go all in. I go all out, fam. I got RevShop got issues, okay? And so I'm still working on my issues, but I don't want nothing to happen to Jeff Bezos, because I just love that Amazon is just amazing in terms of that. But I began to literally psychologically and physiologically heal as a result of removing myself from the proximity of them. Now, number 12, Africanize your thinking and learning. I cannot stress this enough. Now, Brother Andrew, by default, if you just sat up literally and absorbed every show, every process, every guest that Brother Andrew has on his platform, you will automatically begin to synthesize and Africanize your thinking. You will begin to cleanse yourself of that signal of the Amu. And so this is a daily cognitive task, because our unconscious Stockholm syndrome, our bonding to our capture, and addiction to whiteness, white values, subconsciously creates a genetic memory that believe that success at any level is acting or being white. That is the dumbest ish I've ever heard. But this is what we suffer from. Some of us think that we're trying to be white. The fact that we even speak English, or as you would say, proper English, I say, oh boy, that you're trying to be white. No, you're not trying to be white. You're trying to be God. You understand? You're trying to be your natural goddess state. That's what you're trying to do. But because of the intrusion of the illusion that white is right, you think and turn Becky and Karen or Stephen and Stephanie on your own people. Learn how to sagaciously steal back your knowledge. Now, I have become a master of this. I literally can go into white spaces, white scholarship, steal all of the information and resources and bring it back, synthesize it, homogenize it, Africanize it, and bring it back to the people as science that you are seeing and experiencing right now. All of us have the ability to do that. And what you're doing and experiencing every single time that you watch a program from Brother Andrew, that is exactly what he is doing. And you are getting it because truth recognizes itself. So when truth is given to you, that's why he calls it hidden truth. Truth recognizes itself. So when he gives it to you, you are automatically looking at it and say, oh my goodness, this is amazing. And the reason that you're saying that is because your eyes are being opened like Neo for the first time. You are getting this information, and because you're now cleansing yourself of that secondary syndrome of secondary frequency sickness. Use your third eye. Be skeptical and leery. This is very important because this is something that has happened to me. And so I need to bring this publicly to the community. Be very leery and skeptical of people, white people who are in the DEI business, diversity, equity, and inclusion. These are the people who are simply making money off of Black pain. Now, some of their scholarship is phenomenal, but they don't want shit to do with Black people. And I'm sorry I have to use that language, but I have experienced this at the top level because I've interviewed the top DEI people. I've interviewed the best of them. Now, one of the things that I discovered, one of them told me that they literally prefer to be around African men versus African American men and African American women. Why? Because they don't have it, because the ADOS, the African descendants of slavery, that story is such a powerful truth that they can't handle the truth, and it makes them feel uncomfortable. And they're in the diversity industry. These are the people that are top, you know, that go into these companies to do diversity training. These are the people who are on television trying to make you feel like you matter, right? But these are white people. There's one chick that literally gets on television every time she's on and says, on behalf of all white people, I'd like to say I'm sorry. That is the most sick human being I've ever met. I have interviewed this person. I know their scholarship is sound, but you've got to look beyond the veil of the sickness that these people are. White is not right. There's nothing right about them. So you want to make sure that you're able to have that distinction. Now, to bring yourself up to first frequency, to reveal the first frequency that's already inside of you, you need to create what we call the Black Room. Brother, I was about to call him Doctor because he should be Doctor. Dr. Billy Bird, B-Man Billy Bird, produced this concept called the Black Room. And it's based on the science of dark energy and dark matter, which is where we come from. I think when I was here last time, I talked about they made us afraid of the dark. They made us afraid of the very thing that created us. Dr. Sebi always used to tell Brother Kaba that before you can talk about melanin, you got to talk about carbon. Carbon is black. That's why they call us carbon-based entities. We are black, blackity black. Everything comes from the dark. Everything comes from dark matter. Before you can see light, guess what has to be there first? Darkness. So in order for light to even be seen, you have to go into the black. And so you need to know how to go into the Black Room. We're getting ready to put together an entire process of how to maneuver and manipulate the black energies, the Black Room, the black matter, so that you can manifest your reality. This is also what Brother Andrew and I are going to be getting together and doing together when I teach you how to collapse time, right? So they took us, when they stole us, they didn't just steal us, they stole our time. They froze us in time. The ice people stole us and froze us in time. We stopped growing, we stopped moving forward. Now we're getting back to the black. This is what Brother Andrew is doing and dedicated to. So this level of science and truth, we're going back. This is called Sankofa. We're going back to come forward. We're going to get to the promised land because the promised land has never left us. It's already inside of us, but we're going to learn how to collapse time so that we can experience, if you will, that heaven literally on earth. Next thing I want you to do is I want you to enroll in our free e-course. So it's absolutely free. Go to firstfrequency.com, put your email in there, and you're going to get a plethora of information on and about what first frequency is. Now, also, Brother Andrew and I, we have partnered together and we created this webpage called hiddentruthdownloads.com. Hidden Truth Downloads is where you can go and get memberships in first frequency, or just our visitors package in first frequency. And Brother Andrew has been very gracious and becoming an affiliate that we're working with in this concept called sudden wealth. As I keep coming back on the platform, I'm going to be demonstrating all of these things in real time, teaching you and the community how to collapse time, understanding chemicalisation, understanding your identity crisis, understanding why you're not able to either create wealth or sustain wealth. And it's because there's something that has happened to you. That trauma has infested inside of you. But because that trauma signal, that racial battle fatigue signal is constantly on you, you're not able to think and sequence your way out of the situation that you're in because you're under a continuous pressure. So Brother Andrew and I are working together to work with you and teach you on that. Also on Patreon, I'm getting ready to launch live lessons where I'm going to take even a deeper dive. I did 10 lessons on my YouTube channel called lessonsinshock.com, lessonsinshock.com. And those 10 lessons, one of them, which is what you got today, chemicalization and the identity crisis. On Patreon, I'm going to actually be launching probably in 2 weeks that where I'm going to take a deep dive. It's a small group of you. I want to take you, and I really want to take a deep dive into each of these 10 lessons, foundational learning lessons, so that you can understand how to manipulate time, how to manipulate matter, how to move yourself out of the situations that you're in. When you get into a situation with the Amu, how to literally manipulate them and process through them. Because once you know who they are and you know who you are, then nobody can tell you what you are. So that's what I want you to know. Again, this is dedicated to this special report download, firstfrequencysuttonwealth.com. You can go there, get the book, download it. Tell me what you think about it. I think it's the best thing since sliced bread, but you know, you might be vegan. You might not like bread. I don't know. We'll see. So now let's end with our practice of frequency specificity and invoking the law of 7. Recite the affirmation of power, prosperity, and protection 7 times daily for 7 days. And that is, I am one with first frequency. I am one with the first thought idea. I am one with the firstborn people. I am one with the only one. Ashe, and so it is. Hotep community, Uncle Jobson, thank you so much. I am the metaphysical Morpheus.
Jeez. Oh gosh, let me turn up my. Oh, brother Reverend, you never warned us. You warned us, but you never warned us, brother. Wow. Step by step, brothers and sisters. What a class today. And I really want to emphasize, man, what the brother was teaching was science. Yeah? Some of it sounds a bit harsh. You know what I'm trying to say? And it does sound. And we know living in the UK, it's a different reality aspects. But brothers and sisters, what this brother done tonight, and I think, brother, you can see the responses, brother. Absolutely phenomenal. But no frothing of the mouth. It's not an emotional reality, brothers and sisters. This is deep, utter science. Reverend, we bow to you. We thank you for giving us your expertise. I can't wait to literally see you again on this platform. But brothers and sisters, please, in the chat room, I love the chat room, man. You lot have your own universe in that chat room. Brothers and sisters, you let Reverend Shock know about his time, his wisdom, his speciality, and what he's done. I keep saying that every time he's on this platform, he doesn't know what he's done to the UK and to the Caribbean that's linked on this platform. We know we got our Canadian brothers and sisters. We know we got our American brothers and sisters. Brother Reverend, we bow to you, brother. And remember, look out. This is our time.
Yes, it is.
So, oh, wow. Everyone, Reverend, I normally go through questions and some of the comments, what people have made, but I don't need to tonight. I just want you to be reading, brother, because this is crazy. With Lady Adele, and Reverend Shock in one show, maybe it was just an atomic bomb that was just waiting to go off.
Yeah, that's nuclear. That's absolutely nuclear.
Horrible. What's that, Reverend?
That's it. That's nuclear. Lady Adele and Rev Shock on the same day as.
Oh, brother, this is a beautiful path.
But everything she said, doesn't it make sense? Everything that she said was 100% on. I'm just bringing the other side of it to make it so you can have a deeper understanding, overstanding of it, and understanding of it. But she's absolutely correct. But that's why they do what they do.
Fantastic. Brother George said this earlier. Queen Adele, I truly loved your presentation, especially today. The way you went into subtly into the current situation without making any direct accusations or instigations, masterfully talked into a problem and gave us a clear overview and understanding of what is exactly happening before our very eyes. I just praise you to the Most Highest as one of the best teachers I ever had, along with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Lord gosh, I've never read that before. And then when it comes to our brother, Reverend Shock, brother, oh gosh, I don't know which comment to read out that sums you up, brother, because people have just gone crazy. They've gone crazy, brother. And just to let people know that tonight's show has been recorded and will be released. I know many people are saying, Brother Andrew, man, you're not sharing the shows out, man. Don't worry. Don't worry, man. We've got things lined up, and we know last week's show. For those of you who may not know, if you go to my website, brothers and sisters, theinvestigator.org.uk, and I will show you some good news tonight. That I know many people say, Reverend, you're dropping so many bombs. I can't keep up with you. I can't keep up with you. But don't worry, brothers and sisters. On my website, theinvestigator.org.uk, if you go into it now these days, you see services. Under services, you see presentations. And when you click on presentations, yeah, now you're going to start seeing videos that you can go and see. Yeah, we've got all the shows getting lined up. So, all right. So now,
Bada. I know you look been here.
All right, so brothers and sisters, go to my website. So I know, Reverend, you did not play tonight, brother. I don't know how you're gonna follow tonight. I'm being serious. We still got 400.
Got so much content for the family, man. I got so much drop. You know, this is the thing. We all have to get on this same level of information. And what I love about your platform, man, and how you roll is you have the best thought leaders and change agents that are in what we call Tepaseb. It's absolutely amazing. The accurate knowing by using the correct method. It's absolutely amazing that I could have never predicted that Lady Adele would present what she was. I'm looking at that. I'm saying, well, I don't even need to come on after Lady Adele, right? There's no reason for me to even be here because I'm still reeling from that. But to be able to complement that and for us to be able to receive that, what you're doing, brother.
No, but I don't want to take no praises, brother. This is your time. We've got Sister Sylvia that just said thank you so much with pure kisses. Sister Kemet, which is one of our great presenters in the UK, she says he's awesome. I love him. Sister Elon Ross says this was some serious shit. Antonia Valentine says thank you, my king. Prudencia Wood says believe. Doreen Fenton says amazing power. Jocelyn Joseph says you just rocked the house tonight. And he goes on and on and on. Brother, may Allah continue to bless you, brother. And as I said, this is a platform of learning. That's what I want people to know. Yeah, you don't have to agree with every single thing that every single guest comes and say. But what you will agree on is that, and you cannot deny, you learned a masterclass. You learned a masterclass tonight, last week, and next week as well. You've just sat down and had a master teacher teach you. And what I love about Reverend Shock, he will give you the names, he will give you dates, he will give you places, he will give you books. So this ain't, nothing personal.
Right.
Go away and study, brothers and sisters, and never allow anyone to convert you. You convert yourself by your studying the principles that have been taught to you. You convert yourself with your own wisdom. Because I'm saying to you, what you heard tonight from this brother, I challenge you to go back and say you're lying. I challenge you. I challenge you. Yeah. So, brother Reverend, once again.
And one other thing, brother, I mentioned during the birthdays. Today is Dr. Linda Jeffries' 84th birthday. January 19th. So I wanted to give a shout out to Dr. Linda Jeffries. 84 years of science that he has given us the glory. So love you, Dr. J. If ever you see this. Also, I want to send a shout out to Maxine and Patrick Grant for introducing me to you, because if it wasn't for them, I don't know. I don't know if they're in the audience. I'm sure they are.
Yeah, I'm sure they're there.
But Pi Ratio and the Grant family, Q Maya, and Enrique, I love you. Thank you so much for introducing me to Brother Andrew Muhammad.
Brother, just before we go, we have to go now. Monica says, Reverend Shock, we can't thank you enough. This has been so powerful. May the Most High bless and keep you. Victoria says, mind-bending. Not sure if I grasped it all. I don't think any of us grasped everything that the brother said tonight. We have to go back and play it again. So the replay will be coming up. Sister Jackie says, found my spiritual family tonight. I realized that I'm in the right place. Pure love to Lady Adele and Reverend Shock. So, brother, you know, I can't. I don't have to carry on and on. Brother,
I just love you, man. I support you and everything.
no, love you, my king. Love you, my king. So, brothers and sisters, just as we go, we still got the 400 of you on the platform. Don't forget what we said today about Nubian Red. Let's try and save the leg of her son. Yeah, if we can raise up some money for this sister, it could mean literally a young brother in Jamaica keeping his leg. Okay, so please don't forget, hit that button, donate to our sister. Okay, understand that. Next week's show, brothers and sisters. Oh my gosh, Jamaica, Barbados, Trinidad is gonna be in the house. Is the Caribbean calling? And we've been sponsored by Y Dream Travel. So, brothers and sisters, don't forget, next week, same place. Spread the word, spread the word. And don't forget, this Friday, Doctor Strange, we're going metaphysical, brothers and sisters. Tickets have gone like crazy, but you know what? We'll always make space in the inn. Lady Adele is going to be doing a special presentation called What is Reality? What is reality? I may have said it wrong, but it's on that kind of theme, okay? So Doctor Strange will be with us next on this coming Friday. Popcorn Friday is Doctor Strange. So brothers and sisters, I thank you so much for being here tonight. I want to give a shout out to my nephew, Issa Rashid. It's his birthday today. Brat, love you, my king. Your credit, 24-year-old brother. Now, when I see a brother like that, I know our next generation's safe. So, brothers and sisters, this is Brother Andrew Muhammad greeting you in the greeting words of peace. We say in one of our original languages of paradise and foresight, and that is Assalamu alaikum. Brothers and sisters, walk straight, be good. And remember, you're not black because you're cursed, you're black because you're first. One love.
Neither beast or